The Alpha King touched my hand for 3 seconds, and the entire forest started screaming. Everyone told me I was cursed. Everyone told me I was a monster who should have been killed at birth. But they were all wrong, because what I am is so much worse than a curse, and so much more powerful than they ever imagined. My name is Rowan. I am the last bridge. And this is the story of the night I stopped hiding what I was and became the most dangerous thing in the kingdom. The king saw my secret. The forest wanted to consume me. And an enemy alpha came to claim me as his weapon. But none of them understood the truth. I was not born to be controlled. I was born to change everything. If you leave now, you will never know how a girl everyone feared became the one thing that could save them all. You will never know the choice I made when mercy and vengeance stood before me. And you will never know why the Alpha King risked his throne to protect me. This is not just another werewolf story. This is the story of what happens when the monster they tried to destroy becomes the hero they never deserved. Stay until the end, because the twist will leave you breathless. And the ending will break your heart in the best way possible. Let me tell you what really happened the night the Alpha King touched my hand. And the whole world changed forever. The Alpha King's claws were at my throat when the earth began to split beneath us. I did not mean to do it. I never meant to do any of it. His hand had brushed mine for only a second, skin against skin, and now the ancient pines were shrieking. Not swaying. Shrieking. The sound tore through the night like metal ripping, like bones breaking under pressure, like the forest itself was dying. King Matthias stumbled backward, his golden eyes wide with something I had never seen in an alpha before. Fear. What are you? He snarled, but his voice cracked at the edges. Could not answer. Could not breathe. The ground beneath my feet was warm now, pulsing like a heartbeat, and I felt the forest's rage flooding through my veins like black ice. Every tree for miles was screaming my name. Not the name my mother gave me. The name the forest knew. Daughter of Ash. Bloodroot. Nding. The Alpha King's pack circled us. Dozens of wolves with their hackles raised and their teeth bared. But none of them would come closer. They could feel it too. The wrongness radiating from my skin. I had spent 17 years hiding what I was. 17 years swallowing the darkness that lived inside me like poison. My mother died to keep the secret. My father abandoned me to forget it. And now, because the Alpha King had touched me during his inspection of the Omega wards, because his skin had met mine for one careless heartbeat, the entire Blackthorn forest was coming apart. Make it stop, Matthias commanded, but his voice shook. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. I cannot, I whispered. The trees bent toward us, their branches clawing at the sky, and the smell of rot filled the air. Not the clean rot of autumn leaves. The wet, choking rot of things that should stay buried. The ground cracked wider, and roots burst through the soil like skeletal fingers. They wrapped around the legs of the nearest wolf, a beta with silver fur, and he howled as they dragged him down. Down into the earth. Down into the dark. Matthias lunged forward and grabbed my wrist, his grip burning hot against my frozen skin. Stop this now, or I will kill you where you stand. But when our eyes met, I saw the truth. He could not kill me. Not because he was merciful. Because he was terrified. The forest screamed louder, and I felt the power inside me uncoil like a serpent waking from a long sleep. It wanted out. It had always wanted out. You do not understand, I said, and my voice did not sound like my own anymore. Sounded like wine through dead trees. Like the whisper of dirt falling on a coffin. I am not doing this. His claws dug into my wrist, drawing blood. Then who is? I smiled, and it felt like my face was cracking open. The forest is. The trees stopped screaming. The sudden silence was worse. Matthias released me and stepped back, his chest heaving, his pack gathered tight around him. The silver beta was gone, swallowed by the earth. Not even his bones remained. I looked down at my hands. They were covered in black veins, spreading from my fingertips to my wrists like ink in water. This was what my mother had warned me about. This was why she made me wear gloves. Why she never let anyone touch me. Why she told me to run if the Alpha King ever came to our village. But I had not run. I had been foolish. I had thought I could hide. Matthias circled me slowly, his wolf rising to the surface, his bones shifting under his skin. "You are a hollow one," he said, and the words were a death sentence. I had heard the stories. Everyone had. The hollow ones were children born wrong, born with the forest's curse instead of the moon's blessing. They did not shift into wolves. They shifted into something else. Something worse. "I am not," I lied, but my voice betrayed me. The black veins crawled higher, up my arms, across my shoulders. I could feel the forest watching me. Waiting. Hungry. Matthias shifted fully now. His human form melting into a massive black wolf with eyes like molten gold. He was beautiful. He was terrifying. He was going to kill me. But when he lunged, the earth rose up to meet him. Roots exploded from the ground, thick as my waist, and wrapped around his body mid-leap. He snarled and snapped, his jaws closing on empty air, as the forest dragged him down. Not into the earth like the beta, onto his knees, forcing him to submit. Pack froze. An Alpha King did not kneel. Not to anyone. Not to anything. But he was kneeling now. Me. I did not move. I did not breathe. The black veins reached my throat, and I felt the forest's voice in my skull, old and patient and utterly inhuman. "You are mine," it whispered. "You have always been mine." I wanted to fight it. I wanted to scream. But the darkness felt like coming home. Matthias's wolf eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time since he had touched me, I saw not fear but recognition. He knew what I was. He had always known. "You are the girl from the prophecy," he said, his voice rough and broken. "The one who will burn the moon's kingdom to ash." I shook my head, but the forest laughed inside me. "I do not want this," I said. But the ground beneath us trembled, and the trees leaned closer, and somewhere deep in the woods, something ancient and hungry began to wake. The Alpha King rose to his feet, the roots releasing him reluctantly, and he shifted back into his human form. Blood ran down his chest where the roots had pierced his skin. He did not take his eyes off me. "Then you are going to have to fight it," he said quietly. "Because if you do not, the forest will consume everything." I looked at my hands, at the black veins pulsing with power I did not understand, and I realized the truth. I was not a wolf. I was not even human anymore. I was the forest's weapon, and it had just declared war on the wolves. The Alpha King held out his hand, blood dripping from his fingers. "Come with me," he said, "before it is too late." But I could hear the forest whispering. I could feel its roots beneath my feet, spreading, searching, hungry for more. And I knew the truth he did not want to say. It was already too late. The whole forest had woken, and it was screaming for blood. The Alpha King's hand hung in the air between us, blood dripping onto the trembling earth. I stared at it like it was a blade. Behind him, his pack watched with eyes that gleamed in the darkness, waiting for me to make a choice that would determine whether I lived or died. The forest whispered warnings in my skull, each word wrapping around my thoughts like thorns. "Do not trust the wolf," it hissed. "He will cage you. He will break you. He will use you until there is nothing left. But when I looked at Matthias, at the blood streaming from the wounds my forest had given him, I saw something unexpected in his golden eyes. Not hatred, not disgust, understanding. "I know what you are afraid of," he said quietly, his voice cutting through the forest's whispers. "But you cannot stay here. If you remain, you will become what they fear most." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him I could control it, that I was stronger than the darkness inside me. But the black veins had reached my collarbone now, spreading like cracks in ice, and I could feel the forest's hunger growing with every breath. It wanted to feed. It wanted to destroy. And part of me, the part one had spent years burying, wanted to let it. "What happens if I come with you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Matthias lowered his hand slowly, as if any sudden movement might shatter the fragile moment between us. "I will take you to the Moon Temple," he said. "The High Priestess knows things about the Hollow Ones that the rest of us have forgotten. She might be able to help you control it. Control it. Not destroy it. Not cut it out of me like a disease. Control it." The word felt like hope, sharp and dangerous. I took a step toward him, and the roots beneath my feet writhed in protest. The trees groaned, their branches scraping against each other like grinding teeth. "She is ours," the forest snarled inside my head. "She belongs to the earth, not to the moon." Pain exploded behind my eyes, bright and blinding, and I stumbled forward. Matthias caught me before I fell, his arms strong and steady around my waist. The moment his skin touched mine again, the forest screamed. But this time Matthias did not let go. He pulled me against his chest, his heartbeat steady and strong beneath my ear, and I felt something shift inside me. The darkness recoiled. Just for a moment, just long enough for me to breathe. "I have you," he murmured against my hair. "I will not let it take you." I did not know if he was lying. I did not know if he even could stop it. But I held on to him anyway because he was warm and real and alive, and the forest was none of those things. The black veins stopped spreading. The trees fell silent. And for the first time since he had touched my hand, I felt like myself again. Matthias pulled back just enough to look at my face, his golden eyes searching mine. "Can you walk?" he asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He released me carefully, watching to make sure I would not collapse, and then turned to his pack. "We return to the palace," he commanded. "Now." The wolves shifted uneasily, their eyes fixed on me with a mixture of fear and fascination. One of them, a tall woman with copper hair and sharp features, stepped forward. "My king," she said, her voice cold and precise. "You cannot bring a Hollow One into the heart of our kingdom. It is forbidden." Matthias's expression hardened into something deadly. "I am your king, Celine," he said quietly. "I do not recall asking for your permission." Celine's jaw tightened, but she bowed her head in submission. "Of course, my king," she murmured. "Forgive me." But when she lifted her eyes, I saw the hatred there, burning bright and sharp. She would not forgive this. She would not forget. And she would do everything in her power to destroy me. The pack formed a circle around us as we began to move through the forest, their bodies tense and ready for attack. Not from external enemies. From me. I kept my hands pressed against my sides, my fingers curled into fists, terrified that if I touched anything, the forest would wake again. The black veins had faded to faint gray lines beneath my skin, but I could still feel them pulsing with each heartbeat. Waiting. Matthias walked beside me, close enough that our arms almost touched, but he did not try to take my hand again. He knew better now. Every touch was a risk. Every moment of contact could shatter the fragile control I had. "What is your name?" he asked after a long silence. I hesitated. My mother had given me a soft name, a safe name, a name meant to hide what I was. But the forest knew my true name, the one written in my bones and blood. "Rowan," I said finally. "My name is Rowan." He nodded slowly, as if testing the name in his mind. "Rowan," he repeated. "Like the tree." I almost smiled. My mother had a sense of humor. Rowan trees are supposed to protect against dark magic. Matthias glanced at me, and something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "Did it work?" he asked. I looked down at my hands, at the gray lines still visible beneath my skin. "What do you think?" I said quietly. He was silent for a moment. "I think your mother loved you," he said finally. "And I think she was terrified of losing you." The words hit me like a physical blow, and I had to bite down on my lip to keep from crying. My mother had loved me. She had died loving me. And her last words had been a warning I had not heeded. "Never let them touch you," she had whispered as the fever took her. "Never let them know what you are." But I had failed. I had let the Alpha King touch me, and now everything she had sacrificed to protect me was unraveling. We walked for hours through the dark forest, the pack moving in absolute silence around us. The trees watched us pass, their branches swaying even though there was no wind. I could feel their attention on me, heavy and expectant, waiting for me to return to them, waiting for me to give in. By the time we reached the edge of the forest, my legs were shaking with exhaustion and my head pounded with the effort of keeping the darkness locked inside. Before us stretched a vast clearing, and beyond it rose the Alpha King's palace. I had heard stories about it my entire life. The seat of wolf power, built from white stone that glowed silver under the full moon. But seeing it in person stole the breath from my lungs. It was massive, a sprawling structure of towers and walls that seemed to grow from the earth itself. Torches burned along the battlements, and I could see guards pacing back and forth, their silhouettes sharp against the night sky. This was where I was going to die. I knew it with sudden, absolute certainty. The forest could not reach me here. But the wolves could. And they would tear me apart the moment Matthias was not looking. As if reading my thoughts, Matthias moved closer, his shoulder brushing mine. "No one will touch you," he said quietly. "I give you my word." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that an Alpha King's word meant something. But I had learned a long time ago that promises were just pretty lies wrapped in hope. We crossed the clearing, and the massive gates of the palace swung open to receive us. The courtyard beyond was filled with wolves. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all turning to stare as we entered. The whispers started immediately, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. "Hollow One. Cursed. Abomination." I kept my eyes fixed straight ahead, my spine rigid, refusing to let them see how their words cut into me. Matthias led me through the crowd, his pack forming a protective barrier around us. But I could feel the hatred pressing in from all sides, thick and suffocating. These wolves wanted me dead. They would celebrate my execution. And if the high priestess could not help me, Matthias would have no choice but to give them what they wanted. We entered the palace through tall arched doorways, and the temperature dropped immediately. The stone walls were cool and damp, and torches flickered in iron sconces, casting dancing shadows across the floor. Matthias did not slow down, moving through corridor after corridor with the ease of someone who knew every inch of his domain. Finally, we stopped before a heavy wooden door carved with images of wolves running beneath a full moon. "These will be your chambers," Matthias said. "You will be safe here." I looked at the door, then back at him. You mean I will be locked here? I said flatly. He did not deny it. For your protection and theirs, he said. Until we can determine what you are capable of. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to rage at him for treating me like a prisoner. But I was too tired, and part of me knew he was right. I was dangerous. I was a weapon the forest could trigger at any moment. Locking me away was the only sensible thing to do. Matthias pushed open the door, revealing a surprisingly large room beyond. A bed draped in dark furs dominated one wall, and a fireplace crackled with fresh flames. Tall windows looked out over the forest, the glass thick enough to distort the view. There is food and water, Matthias said, and clean clothes in the wardrobe. I will send for you when the high priestess arrives. I stepped inside, feeling the weight of the room settle around me like a cage. When will that be? I asked without turning around. Tomorrow night, he said. She is traveling from the Moon Temple as we speak. Tomorrow night. A full day trapped in this room, alone with the darkness inside me. A full day for the forest to whisper and tempt and try to break what little control I had left. I heard Matthias hesitate in the doorway, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer. I meant what I said, Rowan, he said. I will not let them hurt you. I turned to look at him, this alpha king who held my life in his hands. Why? He asked. Why do you care what happens to me? He was silent for a long moment, his golden eyes unreadable. Because I know what it is like to be feared for something you cannot control, he said finally. And then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a heavy thud. I heard the lock click into place. I was alone. I walked to the window and pressed my forehead against the cool glass, staring out at the forest that had birthed me. The trees swayed gently now, almost peaceful, but I knew better. They were waiting. They would always be waiting. I had just turned away from the window when I heard voices outside my door. This is madness, a woman's voice hissed. Celine, the copper-haired wolf who had challenged Matthias in the forest. He has brought a hollow one into the palace, into the heart of our kingdom. What was he thinking? Another voice answered, male and deep. He was thinking with something other than his head. The girl is beautiful, even with that curse running through her veins. Perhaps he means to keep her as a pet. They laughed, the sound cold and cruel. A pet, Celine repeated thoughtfully. Or a weapon. Think about it, Garrett. If he can control her, control what she can do. He could destroy any enemy who stands against him. The other packs would have no choice but to submit. My blood ran cold. Was that why Matthias had brought me here? Not to help me but to use me. It does not matter, Garrett said. The council will never allow it. The law is clear. All hollow ones must be executed on sight. The king cannot simply ignore centuries of law because he finds a cursed girl interesting. Then we will remind him of his duty, Celine said, her voice sharp with determination. We will call for a council meeting. And if he refuses to execute her, we will do it ourselves. Their footsteps retreated down the corridor, leaving me alone with their words echoing in my head. I sank onto the bed, my whole body trembling. They were going to kill me. The council, whoever they were, would demand my death, and Matthias would have to choose between his law and whatever reason he had for sparing me. And I did not believe for a second that he would choose me. I looked down at my hands, at the faint gray lines still visible beneath my skin. The forest had been right. The wolves would cage me. They would break me. And then they would destroy me, unless I destroyed them first. The thought came unbidden, dark and seductive, and I shoved it away in horror. Well, I was not a monster. I would not become what they feared. But as the night deepened and the forest whispered outside my window, I felt the darkness inside me stirring again. Hungry, patient, waiting for me to finally stop fighting and let it in. And I did not know how much longer I could resist. I did not sleep that night. How could I, knowing that somewhere in this palace, wolves were plotting my execution? I paced the room like a caged animal, my footsteps silent on the thick rugs, my mind racing through possibilities that all ended the same way. With my blood spilled on stone. The fire had burned down to embers by the time dawn light began to creep through the windows, pale and gray. I pressed my face against the glass, watching the sun rise over the forest that had shaped me. The trees looked almost innocent in the morning light, their branches swaying gently in a breeze I could not feel from inside my prison. But I knew better. The forest was never innocent. It was always watching, always waiting. A knock at the door made me spin around, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Who is it?" I called, hating how my voice shook. "Breakfast," a young voice answered. "The king ordered it brought to you." I approached the door slowly, listening for any sign of deception. But all I heard was the nervous breathing of someone very young and very frightened. "Leave it outside," I said. "I will get it when you are gone." "I cannot do that, miss," the voice said apologetically. "I am supposed to make sure you eat. King's orders." I closed my eyes, frustration and fear warring inside me. Matthias was protecting me even now, making sure his people knew I was under his watch. But it also meant I had no privacy. No chance to be alone with my thoughts and my darkness. "Fine," I said, stepping back. "Come in." The lock clicked, and the door swung open to reveal a girl who could not have been more than 14. She had soft brown hair pulled into a braid and wide hazel eyes that darted around the room nervously. In her hands, she carried a tray laden with bread, cheese, fruit, and a steaming pot of tea. She was terrified of me. I could see it in the way her hands trembled, making the dishes rattle against each other. "You can set it on the table," I said gently, trying to sound less dangerous than I felt. The girl scurried across the room and placed the tray down with a clatter, then backed away quickly. But she did not leave. She stood by the door, watching me with those wide, frightened eyes. "What is your name?" I asked, moving to the table but not touching the food. "Lily, miss," she whispered. "And you do not have to be afraid of me, Lily. I am not going to hurt you." She swallowed hard, her throat working. "They say you are a hollow one," she said, her voice barely audible. "They say you can kill with a touch." I looked down at my hands, at the gray lines that had faded even more overnight but were still visible if you knew where to look. "They say a lot of things," I said carefully. "Most of them are not true." Lily took a tentative step closer. "Is it true that the forest obeys you?" she asked, curiosity beginning to overcome her fear. "That you can make the trees move?" I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell her I was just a normal girl, cursed by bad luck and worse timing. But something in her eyes stopped me. She was not asking out of malice or judgment. She was asking because she genuinely wanted to know. "The forest does not obey me," I said slowly. "It is the other way around. The forest wants to control me, and I am trying very hard not to let it." Lily's eyes widened even further. "That sounds terrifying," she breathed. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "It is," I admitted. We stood in silence for a moment, this young servant girl and the monster she had been sent to feed. Then Lily did something unexpected. She smiled. "You should eat," she said, her voice a little steadier now. "The king will ask if you did, and I do not want to lie to him." Despite everything, I felt my lips twitch into something almost like a smile. We would not want that, I agreed. I sat down at the table and forced myself to eat, though the food tasted like ash in my mouth. Lily watched me for a few more minutes, then seemed satisfied. I will come back this afternoon with more food, she said, heading for the door. And miss. I looked up. Not everyone here wants you dead, she said quietly. Some of us think maybe the stories about hollow ones are wrong. Maybe you are just different, not evil. And then she was gone, the door locking behind her. I sat alone in the sudden silence, her words echoing in my head. Not everyone here wants you dead. It was such a small thing, such a fragile thread of hope. But I clung to it anyway. The morning dragged on with agonizing slowness. I tried to distract myself by exploring every inch of my prison, opening drawers and wardrobes, examining the books on the shelves. Most of them were histories of the wolf packs, tales of great battles and legendary alphas. But tucked in the back of one shelf, I found something different. A thin leather journal with no title. I pulled it out carefully and opened it to the first page. The handwriting was elegant but hurried, as if the writer had been racing against time. They call us hollow ones, the first entry read. As if we are empty vessels lacking souls. But they do not understand. We are not hollow. We are full. Full of the forest's ancient rage. Full of the earth's hunger. Full of a power that predates the moon herself. My hands trembled as I turned the page. My name is Ilara, and I am the last of my kind. The wolves hunted us to near extinction, fearing what we could become. But I survived. I hid. And now I write this so that if another like me is ever born, they will know the truth. We are not monsters. We are balance. I read through the entire journal in one sitting, my heart pounding with each revelation. Ilara had been like me. She had felt the forest's call, fought against the darkness, struggled to control a power that wanted to consume her. But unlike me, she had learned to master it. She had found a way to use the forest's power without letting it use her. The last entry was dated nearly 200 years ago. The wolves have found me, it read. I can hear them outside, their claws scraping against the door. I could fight. I could let the forest tear them apart. But I am tired of running. Tired of killing. Tired of being feared. So I will face them as myself, not as the monster they believe me to be. And perhaps in my death, I can show them that hollow ones are capable of mercy. Even if they are not. The journal ended there. I closed it slowly, tears burning in my eyes. Ilara had chosen death over becoming a monster. She had surrendered to the wolves rather than embrace the darkness. Was that my fate too? To die proving I was more than what they feared? A commotion outside my door made me shove the journal under the bed cushions. Voices were raised, angry and insistent. The council demands an audience with the creature. A man's voice boomed. King's orders be damned. We have a right to see what he has brought into our home. Stand aside, another voice commanded. This one was familiar. Matthias. No one enters these chambers without my permission, the Alpha King said, his tone deadly calm. That includes you, Counselor Thorn. You overstep your authority, boy, Thorn spat. Your father would be ashamed to see you protecting an abomination. The sound of a fist hitting flesh echoed through the door, followed by a heavy thud. Call me boy again, Matthias said softly, and I will rip out your throat and feed it to the crows. Now leave. Before I forget that you once served my father with honor. Silence. Then footsteps retreating, many of them, accompanied by muttered curses and threats. The lock clicked, and Matthias entered, closing the door firmly behind him. His knuckles were split and bleeding, and there was a dangerous glint in his golden eyes. "How much of that did you hear?" he asked. "Enough," I said, standing up. "They want me dead." "The council." "Yes," he admitted. "They are calling for an emergency session tonight. They will demand that I execute you according to the old laws." My stomach twisted into knots. "And what will you tell them?" I asked, though I was not sure I wanted to know the answer. Matthias crossed the room to stand by the window, looking out at the forest with an expression I could not read. "I will tell them that the old laws were written in fear and ignorance," he said finally. "And that I am not my father. I do not kill without cause." I moved to stand beside him, careful not to get too close. "They will see that as weakness," I said quietly. He turned to look at me, and I was struck by how tired he looked. As if he had not slept either. "Let them," he said. "I have been Alpha King for 3 years, and in that time I have done everything they asked of me. I have led them in battle. I have expanded our territory. I have secured alliances with the other packs. But I will not murder an innocent girl to satisfy their fear." The words hit me like a physical blow. Innocent. He thought I was innocent. "I am not innocent," I said, my voice cracking. "You saw what I can do. What the forest can do through me. How many more have to die before you realize I am the monster they say I am?" Matthias reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and placed his hand on my shoulder. The touch was warm and steady, and I felt the darkness inside me recoil from it. "You are not a monster," he said firmly. "You are a girl who was born with a power she did not ask for. That does not make you evil. It makes you dangerous, yes. But danger and evil are not the same thing." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that he was right. But Ilara's words echoed in my mind. She had tried to prove she was not a monster, and they had killed her anyway. "What if the High Priestess cannot help me?" I whispered. "What if there is no way to control it?" Matthias's grip on my shoulder tightened slightly. "Then we will find another way," he said. "But I am not giving up on you, Rowan. Not yet." Before I could respond, the door burst open. Celine stood in the doorway, her copper hair wild around her face, her eyes blazing with fury. "My king," she said, her voice dripping with false respect. "Counselor Thorn has collapsed. The healers say his heart gave out." Matthias's hand dropped from my shoulder, and he turned to face her. "When?" he demanded. "Just now," Celine said. "In the corridor outside this very room." Her eyes cut to me, sharp and accusing. "Strange, is it not? He was perfectly healthy moments ago. And then he confronted you about the Hollow One, and now he is dead." As flooded my veins. "I did not touch him," I said quickly. "I have been in this room the entire time." Celine smiled, and it was the cruelest thing I had ever seen. "Of course you have," she purred. "But everyone knows that Hollow Ones do not need to touch someone to kill them. Their curse can reach through walls, through doors, through any barrier." She turned back to Matthias. "The council is gathering now, my king. And they are demanding answers. If you do not give them one, they will assume the worst." Matthias's jaw clenched, muscles twitching beneath his skin. "Tell the council I will address them within the hour," he said. Celine bowed mockingly and left, but not before shooting me one final look of pure hatred. The moment she was gone, Matthias turned to me. "Did you do it?" he asked bluntly. "Did you kill Thorn?" I shook my head frantically. "No," I said. "I swear to you I did nothing. I have been in here alone all morning. I did not even know he was outside until I heard the argument. Matthias studied my face for a long moment, and I held my breath, waiting for him to decide whether to believe me. Finally he nodded. I believe you, he said. But that does not matter. The council will not care about the truth. They will use this as proof that you are too dangerous to live. My legs felt weak, and I sank onto the edge of the bed. So what do we do? Asked. Matthias began to pace, his movements sharp and agitated. We move up the timeline, he said. The High Priestess was supposed to arrive tonight, but I will send riders to meet her on the road. If we can get her here before the council session, she might be able to prove that you are not responsible for Thorn's death. And if she cannot get here in time? Asked. He stopped pacing and looked at me with an expression that was almost apologetic. Then I will have to lock you in the dungeons, he said quietly. For your safety and theirs. If I do not show the council that I am taking their concerns seriously, they will riot. And I cannot protect you from an entire palace full of wolves who want you dead. Understood. I hated it, but I understood. How long would I be down there? Asked. A day, he said. 2 at most. Just until the High Priestess arrives and can examine you. A day or 2 in the dungeons. Underground, away from the windows and the forest. Away from the trees that whispered my name. Maybe it would be easier there. Maybe the darkness would be quieter without the forest so close. Or maybe it would drive me mad. All right, I said, forcing the words out. I will go. Matthias looked relieved, then guilty for feeling relieved. I am sorry, he said. I know this is not. Do not, I interrupted. Do not apologize for doing what you have to do. You are trying to keep me alive. That is more than most would do. He nodded, but the guilt did not leave his eyes. I need to address the council, he said. The guards will come for you within the hour. Do not fight them. It will only make things worse. I will not, I promised. He hesitated at the door, as if there was something else he wanted to say. But in the end he just left, the lock clicking behind him. I sat alone in the silence, staring at my hands. Counselor Thorn was dead. And even though I had not killed him, his blood was still on my hands. Because he had died confronting the king about me. He had died because I existed. How many more would follow? How many more bodies would pile up before this was over? I pulled Alara's journal out from under the cushions and opened it to the last page. Her final words stared back at me. Perhaps in my death, I can show them that hollow ones are capable of mercy. Maybe she had been right. Maybe the only way to prove I was not a monster was to die before I became one. But even as I thought it, the darkness inside me stirred. Hungry, angry, determined to survive. And I realized with cold certainty that when the time came, I did not know which side of me would win. The girl who wanted to be good. Or the monster who wanted to live. The guards came for me exactly 1 hour later. There were 6 of them, all massive wolves with scarred faces and cold eyes that held no mercy. They did not speak as they entered my room, their boots heavy on the stone floor. One of them, a grizzled man with a missing ear, held up a pair of iron shackles. "Hold out your hands," he commanded. I did as I was told, keeping my movements slow and non-threatening. The iron was cold against my skin, and the weight of the shackles felt like a promise. This was real. I was being taken to the dungeons like a criminal, like the monster they believed me to be. "Walk," the guard ordered, gesturing toward the door. Walk. The corridors of the palace were crowded with wolves who had come to watch my humiliation. They lined the walls, their eyes following me as I passed, their whispers rising like smoke. Murderer! Witch! She killed Counselor Thorn with her curse. The king should have executed her immediately. I kept my eyes fixed straight ahead, my spine rigid, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. But inside I was screaming. We descended deeper into the palace, the air growing colder and damper with each step. The torches became fewer and farther between, until we were walking through shadows broken only by the occasional flicker of flame. Finally we reached a heavy iron door. The guard with the missing ear produced a ring of keys and unlocked it, the hinges shrieking in protest. Beyond lay the dungeons. The smell hit me first. Rot and mildew and something else, something metallic that I recognized as old blood. The corridor stretched ahead of us, lined with cells on either side. Most were empty, their doors hanging open. But a few were occupied. I caught glimpses of faces in the darkness, pale and gaunt, watching me with hollow eyes. How long had they been down here? What had they done to deserve this? We stopped in front of a cell at the very end of the corridor, the farthest from the entrance and the deepest into the earth. The guard unlocked the door and swung it open. "Inside," he said. I stepped into the cell, and the door slammed shut behind me with a finality that made my stomach drop. The guard locked it, tested the bars to make sure they were secure, and then turned to leave. "Wait," I called out. "How long will I be here?" He paused, looking back at me with something that might have been pity. "Until the king decides you are not a threat," he said. "Or until he decides you are." And then they were gone, their footsteps echoing away into silence. I was alone. The cell was small, barely 10 feet across, with stone walls slick with moisture. A thin mattress lay on the floor in one corner, and a bucket sat in the other. There was no window. No light except what filtered in from the torches in the corridor. And no sound except the slow drip of water somewhere in the darkness. I sank onto the mattress, my legs finally giving out. The shackles on my wrists felt heavier than they had before, as if they were slowly pulling me down into the earth. This was it. This was where I would wait to learn if I would live or die. I closed my eyes and tried to calm my racing heart. Matthias had promised he would protect me. He had promised the high priestess would come. I had to trust him. I had no other choice. But as the hours crawled by and the darkness pressed in around me, I felt something else stirring. The forest. Even here, deep underground, separated from the trees by layers of stone and earth, I could feel it. It was quieter than before, a distant whisper instead of a roar. But it was there, always there. "They have caged you," it murmured in my mind. "They have chained you like an animal. Is this the protection the Wolf King promised?" I tried to block it out, tried to focus on anything else. But there was nothing else. Just the darkness and the cold and the forest's patient voice. "You could be free," it whispered. "You could break these chains. You could make them regret locking you away." "No," I said aloud, my voice echoing off the stone walls. "I will not." The forest laughed, a sound like wind through dead leaves. "You say that now," it said. "But you will. They all do, eventually. When the fear becomes too much. When the loneliness breaks them. When they realize no one is coming to save them." I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering despite the fact that I was not cold. The forest was wrong. Matthias would come. He had to. Time lost all meaning in the darkness. I could not tell if hours or days had passed. No one came with food. No one came with water. No one came at all. My throat grew dry and my stomach cramped with hunger, but worse than the physical discomfort was the silence. The absolute crushing silence. I began to understand what the forest had meant. This was how they broke you. Not with violence or torture, but with abandonment. With a slow, creeping certainty that you had been forgotten. That you did not matter enough to remember. I was lying on the mattress, drifting somewhere between sleep and waking when I heard voices. At first I thought I was imagining them. But then they grew louder, echoing down the corridor toward my cell. "Are you certain no one will see us?" a woman asked. My eyes snapped open. I knew that voice. "Celine." "The guards have been dismissed," a man replied. "The king is in the council chambers. We have an hour, maybe more." Footsteps approached my cell, and I sat up quickly, my heart hammering. Two figures emerged from the shadows. Celine and the man I recognized as Garrett, the one I had heard plotting with her outside my room. They stopped in front of my cell, and even in the dim light, I could see the hatred burning in Celine's eyes. "Well," she said softly, "look at the mighty Hollow One now. Caged and forgotten." I stood up, moving to the bars. "What do you want?" asked, keeping my voice steady. Celine smiled, and it was a terrible thing. "I want to offer you a choice," she said. "You see, the council has already made their decision. They voted an hour ago. The king's protests were noted and dismissed. You are to be executed at dawn." The words hit me like a physical blow. Executed at dawn. "Matthias would not allow it," I said, but my voice shook. "The king does not have a choice," Garrett said. "The council's decision is final. If he tries to intervene, he will be seen as a tyrant. His own pack will turn against him." Celine leaned closer to the bars, her breath hot against my face. "But I am willing to offer you a way out," she said. "A chance to escape before the executioner comes." I stared at her, confusion and suspicion warring inside me. "Why would you help me?" "Yes." Her smile widened. "Because I do not want you to die quickly," she said. "I want you to run. I want you to flee into the forest where you feel safe. And then I want to hunt you." Understanding crashed over me like ice water. "You want me to break out so you can justify killing me yourself," I said. "So clever," Celine purred. "If you die in here, you die a martyr. The king will mourn you. Some will question whether the execution was just. But if you escape, if you use your dark powers to break free and flee into the forest, then everyone will see you for what you truly are. A monster. A threat. And when I bring back your corpse, I will be hailed as a hero." Garrett held up a key, dangling it just out of reach. "So what will it be, Hollow One?" he asked. "Will you die with dignity in the morning? Or will you run and give us the hunt we crave?" I looked at the key, my mind racing. This was a trap. Everything about this was a trap. If I stayed, I would die. If I ran, I would die. Either way, they won. But if I ran, at least I would have a chance. A slim, desperate chance to reach the forest and disappear. To become what they feared most and survive. "I will stay," I said, the words tasting like ash. "I will not give you the satisfaction." Celine's eyes flashed with anger. "You would rather die a coward's death," she spat. "Chained and helpless." "I would rather die human," I said quietly, "than live as the monster you want me to become." For a moment I thought she would leave. That she would accept my refusal and go. But then Garrett laughed, low and cruel. "She does not understand," he said to Celine. "She thinks she has a choice." He reached through the bars and grabbed my arm. His claws digging into my skin. Pain exploded where he touched me, sharp and burning. And something else. The forest surged up inside me like a tidal wave, roaring in fury. "Release her," it commanded, speaking through my mouth in a voice that was not mine. "Release her or die." Garrett's eyes widened, and he tried to pull his hand back. But it was too late. Black veins erupted across my skin, spreading from where he touched me. They raced up my arm, across my chest, down my other arm. And where they spread, the forest followed. Roots burst through the stone floor of my cell, thick and gnarled and hungry. They wrapped around Garrett's legs, his waist, his chest. He screamed a high, terrible sound, and tried to shift into his wolf form. But the roots held him fast, squeezing tighter and tighter. Celine stumbled backward, her face pale with shock. "Stop this," she shouted. "Stop this now, or I will kill you myself." But I could not stop it. The forest had control now, and it was done being caged, done being threatened. Now they will try to kill you. And now you will have no choice but to let me save you. "No," I said, but my voice was weak. "I will not." The forest laughed. "We shall see," it said. I do not know how long I knelt there, staring at what I had done. Minutes, hours. Time had no meaning anymore. All I knew was that when the footsteps came again, there were many of them. An army. They were coming to kill me. And I did not know if I had the strength to stop them, or if I even wanted to. The footsteps stopped outside my cell. I looked up slowly, expecting to see soldiers with weapons drawn. Instead, I saw Matthias. He stood alone at the bars, his golden eyes taking in the scene. Garrett's broken body, the roots still writhing across the floor, the black veins fading on my skin. "What happened?" he asked quietly. I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell him that Garrett attacked me, that I had no choice. But I was tired of lying. Tired of pretending. "They came to make me run," I said, my voice hollow. "They wanted to hunt me. Garrett grabbed me, and I could not control it. The forest took over." Matthias was silent for a long moment. "Is he alive?" he asked finally. "Yes," I said. "But barely." He nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Celine is telling the council that you tried to kill Garrett unprovoked," he said. "She is demanding your immediate execution. And the council is listening." I laughed, a broken sound. "Of course they are," I said. "I did exactly what they wanted. I proved them right." Matthias stepped closer to the bars. "Listen to me very carefully, Rowan," he said, his voice low and urgent. "The High Priestess arrived an hour ago. She is upstairs, arguing with the council right now. If she can convince them to let her examine you, to prove that you can learn control, you might still live." Hope flickered in my chest, small and fragile. "And if she cannot convince them?" Yes. His jaw tightened. "Then I will have no choice," he said. "I will have to carry out the execution myself. If I do not, the council will remove me as king. And whoever takes my place will kill you anyway. At least if I do it, it will be quick. Painless." I understood what he was offering. A mercy killing. A clean death instead of whatever torture the council might devise. "Thank you," I whispered. He looked at me with something that might have been anguish. "I am sorry," he said. "I tried to protect you." "I know," I said. "You did more than anyone else would have." Footsteps approached, many of them, and Matthias straightened. "They are coming," he said. "Whatever happens, know that I believed you. I believed you were more than what they feared." And then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows as the council arrived. There were 12 of them, all ancient wolves with cold eyes and colder hearts. At their center walked a woman unlike any I had ever seen. She was tall and impossibly thin, with silver hair that fell to her waist and eyes that glowed with an inner light. She wore robes of white silk that seemed to shimmer in the torchlight. The High Priestess. She stopped in front of my cell and studied me with those glowing eyes. I felt naked under her gaze, as if she could see through flesh and bone to the darkness coiled inside me. "So," she said, her voice like wind chimes, "you are the girl who has thrown the kingdom into chaos." I did not know how to answer that, so I said nothing. The High Priestess tilted her head, still studying me. "The council believes you are too dangerous to live," she continued. "They believe you are a hollow one, a creature of darkness and death. They believe you will destroy everything if given the chance." He paused. "Are they right?" she asked. I looked at Garrett's broken body, at the roots still scattered across my cell. "I do not know," I admitted. "Maybe they are." The High Priestess smiled, and it was not unkind. "An honest answer," she said. "That is more than I expected." She turned to the council. "I will examine the girl," she announced. "And I will determine whether she can be saved or if she must be destroyed." "You have until dawn," one of the counselors said coldly. "After that, she dies regardless of your findings." The High Priestess inclined her head in acknowledgement. The council left, their footsteps fading into the distance. The High Priestess produced a key and unlocked my cell. She stepped inside, moving carefully around the roots, and knelt in front of me. "Give me your hands, child," she said gently. I held them out, the shackles still locked around my wrists. She touched my skin, and I braced myself for the forest to surge up. But nothing happened. Instead, I felt something else. Like warm and pure and utterly unlike anything I had ever experienced. It filled me up, pushing back the darkness, silencing the forest's whispers. For the first time in my life, I felt quiet inside. The High Priestess's eyes widened. "Extraordinary," she breathed. "Absolutely extraordinary." "What?" I asked. "What do you see?" She released my hands and sat back on her heels. "You are not a hollow one," she said. "At least, not in the way they believe." I stared at her, hope and confusion warring inside me. "Then what am I?" I asked. The High Priestess smiled again, but this time there was something like wonder in her expression. "You, my dear child," she said, "are something the world has not seen in 1,000 years. You are a bridge." The word hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning I did not understand. "Bridge. What does that mean?" I whispered, my voice hoarse. The High Priestess stood, her white robes rustling softly, and began to pace my small cell. Her feet moved carefully around the roots that still lay scattered across the stone floor. "Long ago, before the wolves pledged themselves to the moon, before the packs formed and the territories were drawn, there was balance," she said. "The forest and the moon existed in harmony. Each had their champions, their children, their power. But then came the war of division. I had heard stories of that war. Every wolf child grew up learning about it, though the details were always vague. A great conflict that had torn the world apart and forced the wolves to choose sides. The forest and the moon turned against each other," the High Priestess continued. "Each wanted dominion over all living things. The war lasted for centuries, and it nearly destroyed everything. Until the bridges appeared." She turned to look at me, her glowing eyes filled with an emotion I could not name. "They were born between worlds," she said. "Children who carried both the forest's power and the moon's blessing. They could speak to both sides, understand both languages, channel both forces. And they were the only ones who could end the war." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. "You are saying I am one of them?" I asked. "I am saying you could be," she replied carefully. The bridges were hunted to extinction by both sides during the final days of the war. Each feared that a bridge loyal to their enemy would tip the balance forever. So they killed them all. Every last one. Or so we thought. She knelt in front of me again, taking my shackled hands in hers. But you are here, she said softly. Against all odds, against all reason, a bridge has been born again. And that changes everything. I wanted to feel hope. I wanted to believe that this revelation meant I could be saved. But all I felt was a crushing weight of responsibility. What does it change? Yes. What am I supposed to do? The high priestess squeezed my hands gently. That depends entirely on you, she said. A bridge can unite the forest and the moon, can bring back the balance that was lost. Or a bridge can be used as a weapon by whichever side claims them first. You have power over both worlds, child. That makes you either the greatest hope for peace, or the most dangerous weapon ever created. Before I could respond, footsteps echoed down the corridor, heavy and urgent. The high priestess stood quickly, positioning herself between me and the cell door. Matthias appeared, his face pale and his eyes wild. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Celine has fled the palace. And she has taken 36 of my best warriors with her. The high priestess's expression hardened. Where has she gone? She asked. To the northern pack, Matthias said, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. To Alpha Kain. The name sent a chill down my spine. Even in my isolated village, I had heard stories of Kain, the most brutal and ambitious alpha in the territories. A wolf who had been challenging Matthias's claim to the throne since the day he took it. She means to tell him about the girl, the high priestess said. It was not a question. Matthias nodded grimly. She left a message, he said. She claims I have been compromised by dark magic. That I am protecting a hollow one who has bewitched me. She is calling on Kain to challenge my authority and take the throne. And to destroy the creature I have been hiding. He looked at me when he said the last part, and I saw the apology in his eyes. The high priestess turned to face him fully. You know what she is, she said. It was not a question either. Matthias was silent for a long moment. I suspected, he admitted finally. My father kept journals, hidden records of the old wars. He believed that one day a bridge would be born again, that it was inevitable, and he made me promise that if I ever found one, I would protect them, no matter the cost. The high priestess studied him with those unsettling glowing eyes. Your father was wiser than most gave him credit for, she said. But protection alone will not be enough now. If Kain learns what she truly is, he will do everything in his power to claim her. A bridge under his control would make him unstoppable. Matthias's hands clenched into fists at his sides. Then we move her, he said. Tonight. We take her to the moon temple where she will be safe. No, the high priestess said firmly. The temple is 3 days' ride from here. Kain's territory lies between us and sanctuary. We would have to pass directly through his lands. He would intercept us before we made it halfway. Then what do you suggest? Matthias demanded. The high priestess looked at me again, and I saw calculation in her expression. We need time, she said. Time for me to teach her control, time to awaken her connection to the moon. Right now she is all forest, all darkness. That makes her vulnerable to manipulation. But if we can balance her power, if we can help her access both sides of her nature, she will be strong enough to defend herself. How long would that take? Matthias asked. Weeks, the high priestess said. Perhaps months. We do not have weeks, Matthias said flatly. Kain could be here with an army in days. The high priestess smiled, but it was not a comforting expression. Then we make sure he does not find her, she said. We hide her in the one place he would never think to look. Matthias and I both stared at her. Where? Asked. Her smile widened. In the forest, she said. In the heart of the territory that birthed her power. You want to send her back to the forest? Matthias said incredulously. After everything we have done to get her away from it. The forest will consume her, he continued. It will take control completely. Not if I am with her, the high priestess said. I can shield her from its influence while I teach her. And the forest itself will hide us from Kain's wolves. It will not allow them to enter its heart. I listened to them debate my fate as if I were not even there. Finally I stood up, the chains on my wrists rattling. Stop, I said. They both turned to look at me. I will not hide, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I will not run into the forest and wait for someone to save me. If Kain is coming, if he wants to use me as a weapon, then I need to learn how to fight. Not in weeks or months. Now. The high priestess regarded me with something that might have been approval. Brave words, she said. But bravery alone will not protect you from an alpha who has spent 2 decades honing his skills in battle. Then teach me faster, I said. Find a way. Matthias stepped forward. She is right, he said quietly. Hiding will only delay the inevitable. Kain will not stop searching until he finds her. And when he does, she needs to be ready. The high priestess sighed, a sound like wind through silver bells. What you are asking is dangerous, she said. Awakening both powers at once, forcing them to coexist without proper preparation, could tear her apart from the inside. And if we do nothing, challenged. If I stay as I am, then Kain will claim you, she said bluntly. And he will use the forest's power inside you to wage war on every pack that opposes him. Thousands will die. Tens of thousands. And you will be the weapon that kills them. The weight of her words pressed down on me like a physical force. I thought of Ilara's journal, of her final choice to die rather than become a monster. But I also thought of something else. Of the possibility that I could be more than what they feared. More than a weapon or a victim. I could be what I was meant to be. Bridge. Tell me what I need to do, I said. The high priestess studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, she said. But we do this my way. And you do exactly as I say. No hesitation. No doubt. If you falter even once, the power will consume you. I understand, I said. She turned to Matthias. I will need a space that is isolated, she said. Somewhere the pack cannot interfere if things go wrong. And guards you trust absolutely to keep everyone else away. The northern tower, Matthias said immediately. It has been abandoned for years. No one goes there. Perfect, the high priestess said. We begin tonight. She held up a hand before Matthias could protest. Every moment we delay gives Kain more time to gather his forces, she said. If we are going to do this, we do it now. Matthias looked like he wanted to argue, but finally he nodded. I will have the tower prepared, he said. He unlocked my shackles with a key he produced from his belt, and I rubbed my wrists where the iron had chafed the skin. Thank you, I said quietly. He met my eyes and I saw fear there. Not fear of me. Fear for me. Do not thank me yet, he said. This is going to be the hardest thing you have ever done. And there is no guarantee you will survive it. I know, I said. But I did not have a choice. Not really. Survival was no longer enough. I needed to become something more. Or die trying. We left the dungeons in silence, the high priestess leading the way with Matthias and I following. The palace corridors were empty now, cleared by Matthias's order. But I could feel eyes watching us from behind closed doors. Could hear whispers following in our wake. The pack knew something was happening, and they were afraid. We climbed stairs that seemed to go on forever, spiraling up and up until my legs burned and my lungs ached. Finally, we emerged into a circular room at the top of the northern tower. It was exactly as Matthias had described. Abandoned. Dust covered every surface, and cobwebs hung from the rafters like ghostly curtains. But it had windows. Tall arched windows that looked out over the forest on one side and the palace grounds on the other. The moon was rising, full and bright, casting silver light across the floor. The high priestess moved to the center of the room and began drawing symbols on the dusty floor with her finger. They glowed faintly as she traced them, geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. "What are those?" I asked. "Binding circles," she said without looking up. "They will contain the power while we work. If things go wrong, they will prevent you from destroying the entire palace." That was not comforting. Matthias positioned himself by the door, his posture tense and alert. "How long will this take?" he asked. "As long as it takes," the high priestess replied. "Do not interrupt us once we begin. No matter what you see or hear. The process must be completed or she will be worse off than before." Matthias nodded, his jaw tight. The high priestess finished her circles and stood, beckoning me forward. "Remove your shoes," she said. "You need to feel the earth beneath you." I did as she commanded, stepping barefoot into the center of the largest circle. The symbols flared brighter as I crossed them, and I felt a tingling sensation across my skin. "Sit," she instructed. I sat cross-legged on the floor, and she sat across from me. "Give me your hands," she said. I placed my hands in hers, palm to palm. Her skin was warm, almost hot, and I felt that same sensation of light I had experienced in the cell. But stronger now. Much stronger. "Close your eyes," she said, "and listen to my voice. Only my voice." Closed my eyes. "The forest speaks to you," she said softly. "You have heard its voice your entire life. But you have never heard the moon. Tonight, you will learn to listen to both." I felt her power flowing into me, warm and bright, pushing against the darkness that had lived inside me for so long. The forest stirred in response, rising up like a serpent preparing to strike. "Do not fight it," the high priestess said. "Let them meet. Let them collide." The light and the darkness crashed together inside me, and I gasped at the intensity of it. Felt like being torn in two. Like my body could not possibly contain both forces at once. "Breathe," the high priestess commanded. "Find the space between them. The place where both can exist." Tried. I searched for that space, that balance point. But all I felt was pain. The light burned. The darkness consumed. And I was caught between them, screaming silently. "You are not two things," the high priestess's voice cut through the agony. "You are one thing made of two halves. Stop trying to separate them. Accept them both. Accept them both." I stopped fighting. Stopped trying to push one down and embrace the other. And instead I just let go. Let the light and the darkness flow through me without resistance. Let them intertwine and merge and become something new. Something that was neither one nor the other. Something that was entirely mine. The pain began to fade. Slowly at first, then faster. And in its place came a feeling of wholeness I had never experienced. I opened my eyes. The room was filled with light. Not the silver light of the moon coming through the windows. And not the dark green glow of the forest. But something in between. A twilight radiance that seemed to emanate from my own skin. The symbols on the floor blazed brilliantly, responding to the power flowing through me. And when I looked down at my hands, I saw both the black veins of the forest and silver lines of moonlight running through them. Coexisting. Balanced. The high priestess smiled. "There you are," she said softly. "There is the bridge." I stared at my hands in wonder and terror. This was what I was meant to be. This was my true form. But before I could speak, before I could ask what happened next, the door to the tower exploded inward. Matthias was thrown across the room, slamming into the wall with brutal force. And through the shattered doorway stepped a man I had never seen before. He was massive, even by wolf standards, with jet-black hair shot through with silver and eyes like chips of ice. Scars covered his bare arms and chest, testament to countless battles. Behind him came a dozen more wolves, all armed and ready for violence. Alpha Kain had arrived. And he was not alone. Celine stood at his shoulder, her copper hair wild around her face, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Hello, little bridge," Kain said, his voice like gravel grinding against stone. "I have been looking for you." The high priestess moved to stand in front of me, but Kain laughed. "Step aside, priestess," he said. "This does not concern the moon temple." "Everything about her concerns the moon," the high priestess said coldly. "She is under my protection." "Your protection means nothing here," Kain said. "Not in a palace whose king has proven himself weak." He looked past her to where Matthias was struggling to his feet, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. "Did you really think I would wait for you to strengthen her?" Kain asked mockingly. "That I would give you time to turn her into a weapon against me? I have spies everywhere, boy. I knew about the bridge before you even brought her to the palace." My heart sank. Celine had not been his only informant. Kain had been watching from the beginning. "The council will never accept this," Matthias said, his voice thick with pain. "You cannot simply walk into my palace and take her." Kain smiled, and it was the cruelest thing I had ever seen. "The council is dead," he said casually. "All of them. Killed in their chambers an hour ago by wolves loyal to me. By the time anyone realizes what has happened, I will be gone. And so will she." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw hunger in his eyes. Not the kind of hunger the forest had, but something far worse. The hunger for power, for dominion, for absolute control. "Come here, girl," he commanded. "Come willingly, and I will spare the king and the priestess. Resist, and I will kill them both and take you anyway." I looked at Matthias, at the blood on his face and the fear in his eyes. Not fear for himself. Fear for what Kain would do with me. Then I looked at the high priestess, who stood tall and defiant despite being outnumbered. She had risked everything to help me. They both had. And now they would die because of me. Unless I made a choice. I stood up slowly, the twilight radiance still glowing softly around me. "If I come with you," I said, my voice steady despite my terror, "you will let them live?" "You have my word as an alpha," Kain said. I knew what an alpha's word was worth. Absolutely nothing if it did not serve their interests. But I also knew I had no choice. Not yet. Not until I learned to truly control this power inside me. I stepped out of the binding circle. "Rowan, no," Matthias shouted, lunging forward. But two of Kain's wolves grabbed him, holding him back. The high priestess reached for me, but I shook my head. "It is all right," I lied. "I will be all right." I walked toward Kain, each step feeling like a betrayal. But as I got closer, I felt something else. The power inside me, the balance I had just found, was growing stronger, more stable. And I realized something. Kain thought he was claiming a weapon. He thought I would be a tool he could use and discard. But he was wrong. I was not a weapon. I was a bridge. And bridges did not belong to anyone. I stopped in front of him, tilting my head back to meet his cold eyes. "I will come with you," I said quietly. "But know this, Alpha Kain. The forest could not control me. The moon could not control me. And neither will you." He smiled, completely unconcerned. "We will see about that," he said. And then his hand shot out, grabbing my throat. The world exploded into twilight fire. The moment Kain's hand closed around my throat, everything changed. He expected me to crumble. He expected the forest to rise up in my defense, wild and uncontrolled, something he could manipulate and redirect. He expected a weapon he could wield. What he got was something else entirely. The twilight fire erupted from my skin where he touched me, not dark like the forest's power, not bright like the moon's blessing, but something perfectly balanced between the two. It did not burn him. It did not hurt him. It simply stopped him, froze him in place like a statue. His fingers still wrapped around my throat but unable to tighten, unable to crush. His eyes went wide with shock and something that might have been fear. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice strained. "This is what happens when you try to cage something that was meant to be free," I said quietly. The power flowed through me like a river, steady and controlled. And for the first time in my life I was not afraid of it. I was not fighting it. I was simply letting it be what it was meant to be. Kain tried to pull his hand away, but the twilight fire held him fast. "Release me," he snarled, "or I will have my wolves tear your precious king apart." I looked past him to where his wolves held Matthias. One of them had a blade pressed against his throat, the silver edge drawing a thin line of blood. Matthias's golden eyes met mine, and I saw something in them I had not seen before. Trust. Absolute, unwavering trust. He believed in me. Even now, even with death seconds away, he believed I could do this. That I could be more than what they feared. "Let them go," I said to Kain's wolves, my voice carrying a weight it had never held before. "All of them." "Or what?" one of the wolves sneered. "You will kill our alpha." "No," I said simply. "I will show you what he truly is." I closed my eyes and reached deep into the power flowing through me. Reached for the connection that bound all wolves to their alpha, the invisible thread of dominance and submission that held the pack structure together. And I pulled. Kain gasped as I dragged his true nature into the light, making it visible for everyone to see. The twilight fire spread from my skin to his, racing across his body like living lightning. And where it touched, it revealed. Images began to appear in the air around us, shimmering like heat waves. Memories. His memories. The council members being slaughtered in their beds by Kain's assassins. Children killed during raids on rival packs. Their small bodies left to rot as warnings. Prisoners tortured for information, their screams echoing through stone chambers. Wolves who had questioned his authority, thrown from cliffs or drowned in rivers. And beneath it all, a hunger so vast and consuming that it made the forest's darkness look like a candle flame. Kain wanted everything. Every pack. Every territory. Every life bent to his will or ended by his hand. And he would have used me to get it. Would have turned my power into a weapon of genocide. The wolves holding Matthias released him, stumbling backward in horror. Even Celine looked pale, her copper hair falling across her face as she stared at the images. "This is your alpha," I said, my voice ringing through the tower. This is who you serve. A monster who would burn the world to rule its ashes. Kain roared, finally breaking free of the twilight fire through sheer force of will. He stumbled backward, his chest heaving, his eyes wild. Lies, he spat. Illusions created by a hollow one to deceive you. But his wolves were backing away from him now. Some looked sick. Others looked betrayed. And a few looked ready to tear him apart themselves. You were supposed to be better than this, one of them said, a older wolf with gray in his beard. You promised us strength, not slaughter. You promised us honor. Kain's face twisted with rage. I promised you victory, he snarled. And victory requires sacrifice. Requires hard choices. If you are too weak to make them, then you deserve to be crushed. He shifted then, bones cracking and reforming. His body exploding into his wolf form. He was enormous, twice the size of any wolf I had ever seen. His black fur shot through with silver like starlight on midnight. His eyes blazed with madness and fury, and he lunged straight for me. I did not move, did not flinch. I simply opened myself to the power inside me, to both halves of what I was, and let them flow. The forest rose up through the stone tower, roots bursting through the floor, wrapping around Kain's massive form mid-leap. But this time the roots were different. They glowed with that same twilight fire, half shadow and half moonlight. And instead of crushing him, instead of dragging him into the earth to die, they held him suspended in the air. Held him like a butterfly pinned to a board. You wanted a weapon, I said, walking toward his frozen form. You wanted something you could control and aim at your enemies. But I am not a weapon, Kain. I am a choice. I reached up and placed my hand on his massive wolf head, feeling the rage and fear pulsing through him. And I choose mercy, I said softly. Even for you. The twilight fire flowed from my hand into him, and his eyes went wide. I could feel everything inside him. Every wound, every scar, every moment of pain that had twisted him into this creature of pure ambition. I could kill him. It would be easy. One thought, one surge of power, and his heart would stop. But that was not who I was. That was not what a bridge did. Instead, I healed him. Not his body, which was already strong and whole, but something deeper. The part of him that had broken so long ago he had forgotten it was ever whole. The part that had learned to survive through cruelty because kindness had always been punished. The part that had become a monster because the world had convinced him that monsters were the only ones who lived. Kain's wolf form shimmered and dissolved, and he fell to the floor in his human shape. He looked up at me with eyes that held something I had not seen there before. Confusion, understanding, and the faintest hint of shame. What did you do to me? He whispered. I showed you what you could have been, I said. What you still could be, if you choose it. He stared at me for a long moment, then looked around at his wolves. At the fear and disgust in their eyes. At the way they had turned away from him. They will never follow me again, he said hollowly. No, I agreed. They will not. But that does not mean your life has to end here. You can walk away. Build something new. Become something better than what you were. Kain laughed, a broken sound. You are more naive than I thought, he said. There is no redemption for someone like me. There is only death or dominion. And you have taken dominion from me. He stood slowly, and I saw him reaching for something at his belt. A knife. Silver-bladed and wickedly sharp. If I cannot rule, he said, his voice flat and dead, then I will not live to be ruled. He raised the knife to his own throat. No, Matthias shouted, lunging forward. But he was too far away. Too slow. The blade pressed against Kain's skin, drawing blood. And then it stopped. I had not moved. Had not used the twilight fire. Had not called on the forest or the moon. I had simply asked. Asked the knife to stop. Asked it to choose mercy over death. And somehow, impossibly, it had listened. The blade fell from Kain's nerveless fingers, clattering to the floor. He stared at his empty hand, then at me. "What are you?" he whispered. "I am a bridge," I said. "And I will not let you destroy yourself. Even if you want to." Kain sank to his knees, and for the first time since I had seen him, he looked small, broken, human. "What do I do now?" he asked, and his voice was the voice of a lost child. I knelt in front of him, meeting his ice-blue eyes. "You go north," I said gently. "Far north, beyond the territories, beyond the packs. And you live. Not as an alpha. Not as a conqueror. But as a man who is learning, slowly, to be something better than he was." He stared at me, tears beginning to stream down his scarred face. "I do not know how," he said. "I know," I replied. "But you will learn." I stood and stepped back, and Kain rose slowly to his feet. He looked at his wolves one last time, at the way they watched him with wary eyes. Then he turned and walked toward the shattered door. Celine moved to follow him, but he held up a hand. "No," he said without looking back. "You chose your side, and it was not mine. Stay here. Face what you have done." And then he was gone, disappearing down the stairs, his footsteps fading into silence. The wolves he had brought with him looked at each other uncertainly. "Go home," Matthias said, his voice rough but commanding. "Return to your packs. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them the age of conquest is over." They left quickly, eager to escape the strange power that still hummed in the air. Celine remained, standing alone in the middle of the tower. She looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. "You should have killed him," she said. "Why?" I asked. "So he could become a martyr. So his followers could wage war in his name." "No. I gave him something far worse than death. I gave him a conscience." Celine's jaw tightened. "And what about me?" she asked. "What punishment do I receive for betraying my king?" Matthias stepped forward, blood still running down his face from the wound on his forehead. "That is not her decision to make," he said coldly. "It is mine. And you will stand trial before what remains of the council. If they find you guilty of treason, you will be executed. If they show mercy, you will be exiled. Either way, you are no longer welcome in my pack." Celine looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Matthias's eyes stopped her. She bowed stiffly and left without another word. And then it was just the three of us. Matthias, the high priestess, and me. The twilight fire had faded from my skin, but I could still feel the power humming inside me. Balanced. Controlled. The high priestess moved to stand beside me, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You did well," she said softly. "Better than I hoped. What happens now?" I asked. "Now," Matthias said, moving to my other side. "Now we rebuild. The council is dead. The pack structure has been shaken to its core. And we have just revealed to the entire kingdom that bridges exist." He smiled, and despite the blood and the exhaustion, it was genuine. "We have a lot of work ahead of us," he said. "But I think perhaps we finally have a chance at something new. Something better." I looked out the window at the forest stretching into the distance, dark and ancient, and then at the moon rising above it, bright and eternal. Two forces that had been at war for thousands of years. and I was the bridge between them. The only one who could speak to both. The only one who could bring them back into balance. It was a terrifying responsibility. But for the first time in my life, I did not feel alone. I had Matthias, who had chosen to protect me when every instinct told him to destroy me. I had the High Priestess, who had seen what I could become and helped me get there. And I had myself. All of myself. The darkness and the light, the forest and the moon, the fear and the hope. I was not a monster. I was not a weapon. I was a girl who had been given an impossible choice and had chosen something no one expected. Mercy. Understanding. Balance. So where do we begin? Yes. Matthias took my hand, and I felt the warmth of him grounding me. The High Priestess took my other hand, and I felt her light steadying me. We begin, Matthias said, by telling everyone the truth. That the old wars are over. That the age of division has ended. And that a new age has begun. He looked at me with those golden eyes, and I saw something in them that made my heart skip. Not fear. Not awe. But something simpler and infinitely more powerful. Oh. We begin, he said softly, by letting you show the world what a bridge can truly be. Not a curse. Not a weapon. But a gift. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. They were not tears of sorrow or fear. They were tears of relief. Of exhaustion. Of a burden finally shared instead of carried alone. The three of us stood there in the broken tower as the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. New day. A new beginning. And I was ready. In the years that followed, they would tell stories about that night. About the girl who touched the Alpha King's hand and made the whole forest scream. About the bridge who chose mercy over vengeance. About the moment when the old world ended and a new one began. Some of the stories would be true. Many would be exaggerations. But all of them would carry the same message. That power without compassion is tyranny. That strength without kindness is cruelty. And that the greatest magic in the world is not the ability to destroy, but the courage to heal. My name is Rowan. I am the last bridge. The only bridge. And I carry within me the darkness of the ancient forest and the light of the eternal moon. I am the space between worlds. The balance that was lost and found again. And I will spend the rest of my life building bridges not just between the forest and the moon, but between all things that have forgotten how to speak to each other. Between wolves and those they have hunted. Between power and mercy. Between what we are and what we could become. This is not the end of my story. It is only the beginning. But it is a beginning written not in blood and fire, but in hope and healing. And that, I think, is the greatest magic of all. The forest still whispers my name sometimes, on quiet nights when the moon is full. And the moon still calls to me, reminding me of the light I carry. But now, finally, I can hear them both. And I can answer. Not as a servant or a weapon or a prisoner, but as myself, whole, free, and unafraid. The Alpha King stands beside me as we face the dawn. And together, we will build a kingdom where the cursed become the blessed, where the feared become the loved, and where every child born between worlds will know that they are not hollow. They are full. Full of possibility. Full of power. Full of the courage to be something the world has never seen before. Something beautiful. Something new. Something worth fighting for. This is the promise I make to the forest that birthed me and the moon that blessed me. This is the promise I make to the wolves who feared me and the people who will come after. I am a bridge. And I will never let the worlds fall apart again.